Welcome, everybody. So good to see you. Hey, Matthew, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Great to see you.
Great to see you too. What else we have here? Hi. Garth, hi. Kathleen, hello.
Hi there.
We're so glad you're all here. And as you enter the room, just a couple things as a few other folks find their way. If you don't mind putting in the chat what center you're calling in from, just like Gloria just did it from Hawaii. Sorry you're not feeling good, Gloria. I hope this helps you feel better. And what traditional territory you might be calling in from your retreat center is on, just as a way to kind of ground us here. We have a few more folks joining in. So good to be together. We're just past the first minute past the hour is going to give a minute of grace for folks. Thanks, Gloria, for throwing that in there. Thanks, Ling. Alexander, great to see you in the call today. How are you, Eve? Nice to see you. So we're gonna get started here, and I wonder, Pam, who is just so amazing, if you could pay attention and admit folks while I'm talking here for the next little bit, that'd be great. Um, so you're here, and we found our way through the busyness of our lives to be together in this virtual room, and we're so glad that you have. My name is Michael Schuberg. I'm the network manager for RCC, and I'm delighted to be online here today, Paris, Ontario, Canada, on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Attawattaran peoples. I'm just along the Grand River that slices through a part of Southern Ontario, beautiful spot. And I'm just so grateful to see familiar faces and also to have a chance to meet some new folks who have found their way here today. So that's really great. Just a few little housekeeping pieces. We have Ling with us today, and Ling's going to introduce herself in a moment. But there are going to be times when we're going to be able to ask questions. So we just ask that you use the little raise hand function. So if you haven't ever used that before, it's down in the bottom, and you can see all the little options there for different ways of interacting. I also love a little heart once in a while or something like that. It's always fun. You can also put your question into the chat box, and I'm going to be watching that out, and I'll share those questions with Ling. So there's the housekeeping piece. Um, and we're going to stick right to the 90 minutes. And this is being recorded, just so everyone knows, and it will be posted later in the blog section of the RCC website. So you can share it with folks later or watch it again. There's going to be so many good things. And I see Peter, he just said hello. He's on the ferry actually heading up to Squamish territory. So he must be heading home. So good to have you here, Peter. We're glad you're on a boat. That's so cool. So I'm just going to invite folks to just put down whatever might be in your hands and take your hands off that keyboard for a minute and find your feet on the floor. Know that this structure you're in, this building or this boat for Peter, that below you is the earth or the water, and then the earth that we all are dependent upon. Let it hold us during this time together as we gather from a variety of different traditions and places on this planet, from viewpoints, and all of us focused on the beautiful world of retreat life that we know is healing and changing and a force that will impact this world. And I just invite you to take a few deep breaths in and out. And find your way to this time. Leave behind everything that you may have carried and just be present to a conversation about programming and how it might impact our centers and our worlds. So, friends, we have fully arrived to this time and to this place. And today I'm going to ask Ling a couple questions, and Ling is going to introduce herself. So, Ling, I wonder if you could tell me what are three things that we should know about you?
Thank you for asking, Michael. First of all, so nice to be in space with you all. I wish I was doing this in person a week ago with all of you or some of you at Mount Madonna, but this is second best through screen. So my name is Ling Lo. I am Canadian-born Chinese, currently living in Battersea in central London in the UK. I'm actually calling in today from Northampton, which is just north of the city, and hosted by Lord and Lady Northampton at a beautiful property called Falcon Hotel, and where they host some wellness retreats. So I'm excited to learn more about this land. It's been in the family for 29 generations, if you can imagine. It's like 800 or 900 years, something like that. I know, I'm quite amazed by it too. So I was program director at Hollyhock for just over 5 years. And then I just completed about 3 years at Kripalu. And bookended on Kripalu was working with a lovely little center in Southern California called Big Bear Retreat Center. So I see Garth and Bill. Lovely to see you both. So I'm actually working with the Big Bear folks again, kind of in a consulting on the programming capacity. And so what that means is on this call, I have many friends, old and new, former colleagues, former bosses, former and current bosses on here. So it's lovely to be in space with you all. And the other thing I'll tell you is that I'm an Enneagram tri-type 381, which means I'm very ambitious and I have a natural born hustle and I love negotiations. But please don't reject me because that is my deep fear, is to be unlovable. I think y'all did some Enneagram work when you were together
We did.
recently.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about why you chose this topic for us for today?
Yes. So, in my experience over the last 10 years working in retreat centers, coast to west coast to east coast, Canada, US context, now in the UK, sort of what's enduring is this question around programming and the profitability of our programming. And it doesn't really matter if you're a 50-bed center or a 500-bed center, and if you're newer and emerging or more established, our centers are exposed to socioeconomic trends and larger market forces and pandemics. And so this question around our programming and the profitability of it is one that is sort of continuous and that it's important for us to track over time. And what we're going to dive into today is sort of the fine tuning of the lead measures of what makes programming profitable. And so it's sort of the combination of great product in front of the right people and that leading to enrollment. So we're going to dive into some of the nitty gritty of how to optimize your revenue and impact through your programming today. How does that sound?
That sounds so great. And just again, thank you so much. I see 30 folks in the room right now just eager to soak up and learn from you. So,
Oh, it's so nice. It's really nice to see so many folks I haven't seen in a while. I know you're a little postage stamp on my screen, but I feel your energy. So thank you for taking the time to come. I thought before we jump into the PowerPoint, I would love for us to do an initial breakout just around the question of how do you define programming at your center, which might sound like a very basic question. It's activities you do to earn revenue. I think for most of our centers, we have programming that drives people to a hotel and a restaurant. Peter, I think I'll give credit where credit's due. I think Peter originally came up with that at Hollyhock. So programming, hotel, restaurant. So what are the activities you do to drive people to your property? And it may be presenter-led programs, it may be multi-day retreats, it could be rentals, it could be some combination of that. And I'd love for us just to start with that question with each other. So Michael, if you could drop people in like dyads or triads for a few minutes, and then we'll just come back and popcorn back, because I think it's important that we have a bit of shared language around this topic.
No problem. Pam's going to drop us into our groups here
Okay.
in just a moment. And
Thanks,
I have put the 2
Pam.
questions that Ling has asked into the chat for you.
Thank you.
Great questions, Ling.
Thanks for your approval, Peter. I got the mic today.
I'm sorry. Pam, how's it going?
Are people seeing the breakout prompt?
No, let me just see. Okay, maybe I'm not sure what happened here. Let me just try. Okay, create. There's 30 of us, so I'm going to create 10 breakout rooms for 3 people in each. Okay,
Hi, Jess. Thanks
think
for
I got this.
coming.
Here we go.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
Okay, I'm just looking here. There's a few rooms that only have 1 person.
Oh,
I'm gonna move David to room 1. Okay. They have 2, 3, 2. Yeah, so some are pairs and some are not. We have a few folks still here in the room that didn't get a chance to head
yeah,
out.
that's okay. They might be driving or otherwise, like
Yeah,
Peter on a
okay, so then
ferry.
I
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
we're recording this, and then we can dive into the deck. So if you want to, I don't know if you're a Pam or
I'll have the decks. I'll
doing it.
start that up. I've just restarted the recording here.
Awesome.
So Pam, while I'm sharing the PowerPoint, if you don't mind, hey Leslie, we're just in breakout rooms, so people are on their way back. So that's what's happening right now. Here they all come.
Hi, Irene. It's so nice to see you. Where on Cortez? Are you on campus? Where in Cortez are
No,
you?
no, I'm home. I'm home in Vancouver.
Oh, I see. I was like, I don't recognize that background. It's great to see you.
Yeah. And hey, Peter. Good to see you too.
Peter's just in the background checking his emails. He told me he'd show up today, so.
I love it. Don't you love it, Peter, when she has the mic? It's like, this is the best thing. We will all get in trouble, but I'm like, at least I'm not so far. But it's been a great conversation, Ling. Thank you very much. Our breakout group was very, very productive.
Is it? Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Okay. Actually, Tatiana, will you please unmute while other people please please raise your hands. I would just love to popcorn a little bit and get a sense of like what types of programming activities are happening in centers out there. Can you tell us about your breakout, Tatiana?
Sure. So I had David and Ken in my breakout, and we'll come from very different centers. And so the great question that you asked got us all pondering, like, wait, what do we have? So I originally come from Esalen Institute, and then David is on the board of a Sienna Retreat Center, and then Ken is managing a center that only kind of hosts programs of the Children's Defense. I'm gonna butcher the name of the organization, but it's like they're the space to host those primarily, and then he's seen how he can access other groups. And then David is also looking, so it's like it's a very different, like what do we host and what do we rent to? And then Esalen has been having all kinds of iterations from like only doing programming that the teachers come and then individuals come to now I think creating their own like Esalen led kind of program and creating their own thing. And I think during COVID too, the piece that we'll discuss is that the people's desire to come for shorter amount of time, kind of like in their own reflective space, change some of the dynamics as well. So we were a combination of all kinds of things. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's a good sense of the spectrum of what's out there. Who else? Did anyone get into like online conversations or hybrid? Or any other, so I'm hearing group rentals and sort of presenter or like visiting teacher led programs. Does anyone host like longer programs or trainings that are like a week or longer? Anything like that out there? Yeah, Eve, I see your hand up. And Leslie, yeah, nice. Eve, you're in Hawaii?
No, I'm in Georgia.
Oh, you're in Georgia. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Someone said Hawaii earlier. Can you tell me where or about the longer format that you do programs?
So we are mostly probably 80% rentals where people rent the space from us and we they fall in line with our mission. But we're fortunate to have groups that come through teacher trainings, like a yoga teacher training. We have we've had dance trainings of some sort. We've had different kinds of things where people stay here for 10 days, sometimes up to 2 weeks. And it's a lot for our staff because we're small enough that we have just one set of staff. So everybody works for that whole long time, but then we take time off after that.
Yeah, that is the longer programming is tricky from a scheduling perspective for sure. Yeah, I did more longer form programs when I was working with Kripalu schools, and so the 4 different schools we ran a lot of teacher trainings, and so we would have everything from week longs to 12 days to month longs, and the cadence of it is quite different, and the pricing models and everything is obviously quite different.
There are 4 folks that have put their comments in the box. So we have Ken, who said that they have writers on sabbatical, week-longs for individuals, and Pam saying they have silent retreats that are week-long. Janet noting long-term programs for over 3 years with quarterly workshops both online and in person. And Jushin, week-long retreats. There are general interest in shorter programs. There's a lot of comments in here. People can read. Lots of great stuff.
Artist in residency programs. Interesting. Okay. So we're really, we have quite a lot of variety here, which is perfect. This is exactly a great entry point to our conversation today. So Michael, if you could dive into our deck, and please keep the comments coming. Not the greatest at multitasking, but we will keep an eye on the chat box. And Michael, please feel free to interrupt as I go. If there's questions coming up, I'm happy to take questions throughout. So next slide. Quick run through of what we're doing today. So the proverbial question, mission or margin. We're going to talk a bit about bright spots. Engaging your core, which is not a Pilates move. I know that's what it sounds like, but it's going to be about something else. This is what my husband and I say to each other when we're hiking. Are you engaging your core? So I thought it was kind of funny, but it's actually about marketing. And then money in, money out on the finances side. Okay, next slide. So how we're defining programming today. So these are activities you do, as I said off the top, that earns revenue. Often it can be presenter-led or visiting teachers, and there's like a vetting process with that. So that there's some like content curation with teachers coming to present, usually a multi-day type of retreat at your property. Mission aligned for sure, and different from rentals or group bookings, although some of what we talk about today is still going to apply to how we think about rentals. I know some of you have 80% rentals and some maybe 100% rentals. So I want to make sure that this is also relevant to the work that you're doing. And the other thing that I'll say that's a differentiator is typically when I'm talking about this type of programming, there's a tuition or a program fee or registration fee associated that is different from what you charge for accommodation and meals. So I'll get more into that when we get to the finance section. Next slide. So here's the question. I mean, I don't know if this came up at all at your recent retreat, but I remember the mission or margin conversation sitting in Olatunji Hall at Hollyhock when we hosted the Holistic Centers gathering, and a very lively conversation that ensued, and another way to say income or impact. And so what I want to actually dive into today is what are the conditions required to turn the or into and. Mission and margin, because I'm a big believer that you can be serving your mission and making money. These are not mutually exclusive ideas. And I also want to say very clearly off the top that when I say profitability, it's not from a, like, I know it can sort of bring about ideas of like a more capitalistic kind of like endless accumulation kind of thinking. That's not how I think about profitability. Is that if your programming is thriving and your finances are flowing, then it's going to allow you to optimize the social impact that you can have. It helps you further your mission in the world. So that's like my orientation always when I think about programming as a manifestation of your mission and it being successful as a way for you to spread your impact in the world. Okay, next slide. So how do we do this? It's a combination of these three circles. You'll see the retreat center term in the non-parentheses. So programming, great programming, meeting your community, and driving enrollments. The corporate speak would be an excellent product that is finding your right target audience and resulting in sales. I learned kind of early on in my retreat center days that sometimes those words in our kind of like, you know, mostly nonprofit and very community driven and purpose driven work doesn't land so well, but I am not one to shy away from things. So I just wanted to like sort of include that to say, you know, this is kind of across sectors, these ideas that we're going to be talking about today. Next slide. And I do love me a Venn diagram. So when these three circles come together, the intersection of your programming and your community is your impact in the world. And then the programming and your enrollment is your income. Community resulting in enrollment is engagement of your community. So this is like a very kind of simple visual to think about the conditions for income and impact. And then in the middle of said Venn diagram is a light bulb. Next slide. So those folks that worked with me at Hollyhock and at Kripalu actually will recognize the bright spot strategy. Quick story about how this came about, Peter. I don't know if you remember how we got into the whole conversation of bright spots. He's nodding. He basically asked me, at the time, Peter was CEO at Hollyhock and I was program director. And he said, how do you approach programming? And I said this whole thing about like, well, it's an art. Has anyone said that, programmers out there? Oh, it's real art, you know, like just you're curating and it's like instinct. And Peter was like, nah, it's not just art. We're going to make this an art and a science. And so we were really thinking about how to be data driven in our decision making. Around that time, we were reading the book Made to Stick, which is actually a business book by Chip and Dan Heath. It's from years ago, 2007. But they had this idea of a bright spots, which we kind of adapted into our retreat center. I'm just going to read a couple of quotes from the book. So hold on, give me 1 second. Oh, yeah, I'm at that point in my life. Reading glasses, much better. That's the first step to fixing everything from corporate malaise to malnutrition. A problem may look hopelessly complex, but there's a game plan that can yield movement on even the toughest issues. And it starts with locating a bright spot, a ray of hope. If you're trying to change things, there are going to be bright spots in your field of view. If you learn to recognize them and understand them, you will solve one of the fundamental mysteries of change. What exactly do you need to do more of? This idea is central to the book's approach of focusing on what is already working rather than just on what is broken. I'm going to say that again. Focusing on what is already working rather than just on what is broken. So the idea, find a bright spot and clone it. Don't fix problems, replicate success. How many folks spend some of their day, maybe all of their day, fixing problems? I know I was doing that a lot. And a funny thing happens when you start focusing on bright spots. It's a different energy because there's optimism that comes into play. You know, you start to think about, oh my gosh, these are the things that are really working. And the idea is not just to go to the quote unquote problem child in your portfolio. It's like, let's look at and really examine the qualities of the things that are working and do more of that. It's a very simple idea. Next slide. So we sort of distilled this down into 3 steps for retreat centers. The first step, so using I should say this up front, using enrollments as a metric, you analyze what's working for you. So choose your top 5 enrolling programs and don't overthink this. You know, like it's not, you might be tempted to think about your most high profile presenters or people that have a large following. Yes, and think about the new program that you didn't know how it was going to do, but it surprised you. And it enrolled really well with very minimal marketing. Think about that one. Okay, so you pull together this little list, identify the winning characteristics of both. I've done this a couple times now, and so I've refined it a little bit. So when we did it at Hollyhock, we were looking at the winning characteristics of the presenter, which is an important thing to do, but also look at the program itself. And you start asking yourself questions of like, what's the topic? What time of year is it happening? Is it a weekend or a midweek? How many days is it? What was the title? Just all those types of qualities, characteristics. And then you're going to end up with like kind of a chart where you have like a wheel of spoke, like you'll have the program and then a bunch of, if I had a whiteboard, I'd be drawing a bunch of lines off of it. So you have all these clusters, and then you start looking at the qualities themselves and clustering them together, and you start looking for trends. So let me show you what this actually looks like. Next slide. This is, it was hilarious. This came out of the archives. This is from a board presentation, I want to say. Peter, I can only see you on my screen, but I see you recognizing this. And so we did this exercise and it was super fun. And I still remember the programs that we looked at. And these were some qualities that all the presenters had in common. They were subject matter experts. They had a niche area of interest, an established following. This makes me laugh. Charismatic as heck. So sensible, charismatic as heck, very PG-13 back in those days, and heart-centered hustle. I'll give you an example of this. So I remember Rev Angel Kyoto Williams was one of our bright spots. And this was in kind of earlier days. She had written Radical Dharma by that time, and she was definitely like a rising star. And she was a great example of heart-centered hustle because she, on her way up to Cortez, did a talk at Banyan Books. And then she did it. And then when she was driving up over the border, I remember she like went back down to Seattle and did a talk and promoted her retreat at Hollyhock coming up the next week. And so she had it's very different than, some people that worked with like, very big names or marquees. Sometimes we only end up ever talking to the agent of the presenter. And that's a different thing. It's a different level of relationship. And sometimes you can be programming big names, but they're not that engaged in their own marketing. So that can be sort of a surprise the other way, where you think it's going to enroll well and it actually doesn't. So this heart-centered hustle piece, we realized, was like all the presenters that we studied as bright spots were all really engaged in their programs doing well. And so their marketing really reflected that. Okay. So yeah, I'm not following things in the chat, but we've got a little like reflection and breakout moment. So why don't we go to that? And then I'd love to hear how this is landing for folks. Next slide. So let's do this for ourselves. Sorry, that's so small. Hopefully you can read that. Let's take, if you have a notebook, piece of paper, or just sit back and close your eyes, just a quick reflection for a few minutes of what are the bright spots at your center? What are some of the winning characteristics of each? And again, remember, don't overthink this. You typically, most people who, if they've been at their center for a while, can name very quickly, like, oh, that program enrolls really well, or like that one really fills the beds. And when you think about the winning characteristics, think about what's unique about them. So if you're a meditation center and it's a meditation retreat, it's like, okay, and what else? What's different about it? And then we can get more specific around the qualities that we're naming. And then I'll just say this next part, and then we'll just roll into the 4 minutes, and then we'll do a little discussion. So another breakout, 2 to 3 people, Michael or Pam, if you wouldn't mind setting that up. And then we'll just get another bit of time to talk about what you discovered, what was surprising, insight uncovered. I'm going to stop talking and give you a few minutes to think about this. I think that's a good amount of time, Michael. Do you want to open up the breakout so people can drop in and have a little chat?
All right, opening the rooms. Have a great time. See you in about 6 minutes.
Yeah. So just canceling out, like closing it to cancel, but it's actually to leave the room.
That's so funny.
Zoom hasn't fixed that. Veronica, it's so nice to see you.
It's good to see you too. I see you on Instagram all the time, and then I'm like, here she is. You and your beautiful dog.
Me and my dog. I was just gonna say, I should have said that as one of my 3 things you should know about me is I'm a very proud dog mom.
Yes, you are. Well,
some may say he's the center of our universe.
Cute.
Yeah.
Oh.
Veronica, can I call on you when everyone's back? I'd love to hear how that exercise was for you. I'm not
Sure,
sure.
sure. Well, I didn't get to finish, but hopefully they're still
Oh
talking
yeah,
amongst themselves.
We're all back
we've
now,
got
actually,
most
so
people. Okay.
welcome back, everyone.
And I've just put Veronica on the spot and was so curious about how that exercise was for her and what might have come up. And folks, I would love, I mean, this part, I'm so curious about what came up for people and maybe like a moment of insight or like that was confusing or I don't know how to define what we do. So please use your little raise hand. And then I'm going to call on Veronica and I'd love to hear some of your voices. Go
Well,
ahead.
sure. Yeah, like identifying the things that lead to the most success at Omega. And it's a lot of what you had listed for the bright spots. It's like, yes, mostly when the faculty are as engaged in their marketing and their promotion, it leads to the most success with our programs. If they're active on social media, that really helps. And then as well, just being on our campus, like the nature of Omega, honestly, it's like once you're there, you get it, but you could talk about it and try to show videos. But it's like, honestly,
Yeah.
when you're on the land and you feel it, that's truly like what brings people back again and again. And then also if our faculty don't spread themselves too thin, like if they're booked back to back all the time, it's like, of course, they're going to spread their audience out. So anyway, that's another thing to lead to, big numbers and big success is not to have them
Yeah.
teach too much.
Yeah. And most of us have sort of that like, term in our contract that if I remember this with Omega and Kripalu because we're physically close together and we share presenters. And so we usually put a term in to like not teach at a center within X number of days within this number of miles. And that it might sound a bit like, oh, it's from a like competitive standpoint, but it's really not, that's not how I see it at all. It's like, we don't want to dilute the audience. We want actually both programs to thrive and get the best sort of numbers that they can, the best enrollment. So that's a good way to do it. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing in the land piece. I think for that maybe that's the continuous thread of folks on this call is that we tend to be in these beautiful places in the world and that land connection is really important to programs and presenters that thrive. Alexander, I'd love to hear from you.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Alexander, I'm representing Shadowcliff Mountain Lodge in Grand Lake, Colorado. I was in a breakout room with Jushin, and we were both in similar positions for different reasons. I'm a new executive director as of like literally 3 weeks, just started a new role as an executive director at Shadowcliff. And Shadowcliff historically had a lot more self-initiated programming, but in the last 10 to 15 years has been more of a vessel for externally organized retreats. And we're a seasonal mountain lodge. We're only open from the end of May through end of September. And so we have this limited operating window and also a limited, that our revenue is limited from that standpoint, but also if we're just a lodge, that our revenue is also limited from a programming standpoint because all the pricing and whatnot, our revenue is just food and lodging. So we're at the space of really sort of trying to imagine reconnecting like programming pathways. And so Bright Spots, where we started this artist in residence program 2 years ago, and that has been a way to sort of engage our local community, which is another thing that we're trying to think about is not just bringing people from outside of Grand Lake to Grand Lake, but there's an existing community there of people that Shadowcliff has been sort of distant from. We're perched right above the town, but we're just 5 minutes away. So how do we both come down to the town to meet people where they are, but also bring them up to Shadowcliff to give them a sense of space, connection, retreat, et cetera. So yeah, those were kind of two bright spots. Were really less thinking about what is really working for us right now, but thinking about how do we utilize where we are, who we're surrounded by, and what I think our strengths are to imagine sort of potential bright spots moving forward. So.
So many great things that you touched on there. Thank you, Alexander. I think that point about looking within your local community, that was another one that we found too. Like sometimes there's like the names that you can bring that have to travel from a different coast or something, and their following may not be where you're located. But if you just look within your own community, I mean, that Cortez Island was a great example of that. There were so many brilliant artists and authors and people that lived on the island, and their programs would often do really well because they had so many fans and supporters that were right there. So that's a great sort of winning characteristic to key in on. Thank you. Bill, lovely to see you. Thanks for coming, Bill. Let's hear what you found.
Thanks. And I think a lot of what I put, Veronica just shared, like just the land, like even though that's not exactly programming, but it is kind of, we do, we'll integrate a welcome walk and encourage people to do hikes. And I think that's something that brings people back. And then, if it's a teacher who has a following, but especially if they're promoting, I think that's a big piece of it. If it's a teacher who's not great at promotion, often we don't do so well. And I like it's nice to hear what Alexander's adding. So we haven't really figured out how to, we are also very close to a community. I mean, it's mostly kind of a vacation community, but there are, locals there and people are curious about us, and we're still sort of not sure how to do that piece. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot to figure out still, I think. And thank you for helping us with that, Ling.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I love the land at Big Bear. Such a special place.
Yeah. Let me just see if there's anything else. And I mean, something else that we're doing that's successful in terms of mission, and that maybe now that we're transitioning to being run as a nonprofit, we can get some funding for is these community builder retreats, we're calling them, which is just basically inviting folks who are working in the nonprofits sector and community-based organizations, activists, etc., up for short retreats, which is typically all they're likely to take time for anyway. People from the local region. So we're kind of, we're 2.5-hour drive from LA, and it's kind of like our big, where we pull more people from. Yeah.
Can you say a couple things, Bill? Actually, I remember when I was there 3 years ago, there was a great food justice community builder that you put together. What are like some of the topics that you're doing? Because I think that's also interesting for folks to hear.
Yeah, and that was a little bit different because there was a separate group that organized that, but that we had encouraged and partnered with. That was a more specific audience, and I think we did something similar for people working in the around housing and homelessness in LA County a few months ago. And I think these are really valuable to like build relationships. People are in this other kind of space, and it's not like just one meeting on Zoom or even in person or at a hotel. It's like when you're actually at a retreat center and you're having meals together, the formal meeting time is great, but like that's not necessarily the most important, element of it. It's like what happens in between. And so I want to do more events like that. And but they take some organization and work, and you need partners from the sector that you want to serve. Most of our community builder retreats are just sort of whoever. It's people from a lot of different sectors who come. So they're not topic dependent, but they are facilitated, and there's a theme for each. Like we did a mindful self-compassion weekend with a couple of great teachers. We've done just kind of like creativity and healing and things like that.
Fantastic. The world needs more of right now. Thank you, Bill, and thanks for naming sort of that communal aspect. That is often a part of our centers as well. Like I'm now over here in the UK, and there's a lot of really like exceptional, extraordinary properties and inns and hotels. And I've been like thinking about like what's different about retreat centers, because like I said off the top, it's like programming plus a hotel plus a restaurant. But the communal aspect, the food, actually, there's so much around the food and the communal eating aspect that seems to be a big part of a lot of our centers, that creates that possibility of collision and catalyst of ideas and people. That seems to be a really defining feature of what we do versus, a conference center or something. Jess Duravaj, lovely to see you. Love to hear from you.
Hey, Ling. So great to see you too. And there's so much resonance in all of what everybody's sharing and in the breakout rooms. It's been really, really sweet to hear. I'm the director of online programming for Kripalu, and I've been there for 4 years and sort of came in right off COVID. And so the bright spot that I wanted to share was just prior to COVID, the only thing people could do is come to Kripalu and teach on campus. And that was it.
Yeah.
It was like the only path in. And through online and just the dynamics of like creating a lot of different levels online, and then also bringing those different levels into the campus, someone can have a touch point online. They can potentially teach an R&R. They could teach a free program online. They could come into our Kripalu online studio and teach in our membership, right? So it's just been really great to be able to offer, especially like new presenters or new voices that aren't just going to get the numbers to, have them be successful on campus, that there are these other touch points for them to help them grow. And, I also want to like name, like, there's like bright spot fatigue when you're trying to introduce new things into a 50-year-old institution. It's like really real, to be like threading the needle with new ideas and innovation in places that are really kind of stuck in their ways. Analog is how I would describe, a lot of Kripalu. And I think on the other side of that too, a bright spot is like identifying the teachers that really, may not be a fit for us anymore. They've moved, they're on campus. Now they've come online, not really, like not fitting there, not, so like, just like they're either finding their home, they're finding a pathway like back to campus, which is really what everybody wants, or they're finding that like, a big part of our work is like, how are we hospicing, folks in a really good way? How are we navigating like hard conversations with folks around, when it's like time for somebody to pass the flame to somebody else, or, things like this. So those aren't easy conversations to have at all. But, being with a 50-year-old institution, we've got presenters that have been with us for 40 years, so it's real. But having those touch points, I think, is just, and then like starting to develop an arc for somebody over 18 months has been really great.
I have to just sing Jess's praises for a minute, because she is absolutely brilliant when it comes to like thinking through what that pipeline could be of, on campus being a gateway to online or vice versa. If anyone is like, working on online programming, thinking about launching it, Jess is an amazing mind to brain to pick about that. She's run the online studio and luminary presenters online, live streams now on demand. Like it's really, really grown the whole online platform or learning platform in a way that is exceptional. So just a little plug, but thank you for naming those bright spots. Good to see you. Janet Howard.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm on the board of a retreat center near a village called Willard, Wisconsin. And actually, I want to echo the last speaker, Jesse, about the online, because we have significantly expanded that since the pandemic. And not only for our daily meditations, but also for different workshops. And so that I feel like that is one of our success points. Another thing is our private retreats. Those are usually just people coming on campus either and not doing workshops, but just spending time in the environment. And then also our bookstore. And I'm going somewhat by our finances in terms of where have been the successful parts in the financial area. I don't have a good handle on what programming is, the best received. We probably have that data, but I don't have that at my fingertips. We do have presenters that come from the community, either from the board members or people that are maybe working at the center. And we also have outside facilitators. And then some people do give their commissions back to the center.
Oh, fantastic. We're actually thank you that'll be a good segue when we get to the sort of finance part of the conversation. But thank you, Janet. That's really helpful. And what you said about not know, like, how do we find our bright spots? Like, if maybe we're a new, so Alexander mentioned he's a new ED, like maybe you're not as familiar yet with the programming and the rhythm of a place. It takes at least a year. Like, you need to see a full year, a full season of how a place operates and the flow and energy of that, and to get to know the presenters to really get a sense. One thing that I started doing, Garth and I are working together right now at Big Bear, and Big Bear uses Retreat Guru as sort of the back end registration. Probably there's other folks that might use Retreat Guru as well. Yeah, Eve, you do as well. So a quick thing that I just started doing was like poking around, just using enrollments as a filter. And so just choosing, we call it open registration at Big Bear. So that's sort of like public facing programs that anyone can enroll into. And I just filtered it. I just sorted it, I should say, by like highest enrollments, and I have a sense of the bed count. And so I'm looking at the like 40 plus 50-ish size groups and seeing which one of those are open registration, which one of those are rentals, and then building my little bright spot list that way. So you could just like take a look at what's enrolling well or filling the beds at your center and using that as a metric to start out. Thank you all. Yes. Where are my eyes? Cranalise, did I say that right? Oh, you're muted maybe. I see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. Okay.
Okay. I'm Mary Trainer at Cranley Spiritual Center, and there's just one bright light I'd love to share with you, and it's we have a commitment to those on the margins and those working with them, to support them in their human spirit and sustainability, the very tough missions they're in, both for wholeness and just spiritual strength to keep about it. And one of the successes this year, and money is always a terribly hard issue. I'm no good at solving for it, but in this case, we were able to partner with an inner city group in Kensington where there's a tremendous amount of gun violence. And it was called Mothers in Charge, and they dealt with the mothers and children who had lost a family member through gun violence and were needing healing. And when we partnered with that group, they then brought their clients. Both we went to where they were to run some things, and then they also came out to where we are, which is a beautiful 10 acres. It's unbelievably called a sanctuary of trees. That's what that means. And it to me, it was, we were finally getting paid to do for what's our mission to do and we want to do, but and more importantly, we were giving access to people who are at the worst of what society can be about right now in terms of death dealing and guns and all the rest of it. But through this partnership, unbelievable things occurred. And I don't know, to me, that's the kind of an imagination that's needed here, where people who, can partner together and each bring something to the table, and it makes it possible for their mission to happen and ours as well.
Oh, beautiful. That is I'm so glad that you brought that into the space. First of all, when I join these calls, I have like goosebumps, because just hearing in one space, like the type of work that we're all supporting to happen in the world, like the impact that we're having, it's just like so important. And this point of partnership is really brilliant, because what you're doing is the same as, I think, Bill, you brought up when presenters are engaged, things seem to fill. And it's like exactly what you said. It's us introducing ourselves to their audience, and them introducing their audience to us. And sometimes even finding a few very strategic, well-aligned, lots of crossover on your Venn diagram of values, finding a couple partners like that can really lift the events that you're doing and serve as like real cornerstones in your calendar as you're putting together your calendar for the year ahead. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Really appreciate you sharing that. Oh, fantastic. Wow. Okay. So why don't we now pivot and just dive into, I think I have 2 or 3 more slides and we've got about 20 minutes left together. I won't go right to the end, Michael, in case you have any housekeeping or anything, but let's dive back into the slides. And perfect segue. This is kind of the engaging your core. If you remember, this is the marketing piece of it. I really simplified this down because I really feel like this could be its own session. But knowing who your audience is, who's your core? Here's my hint. You can't say everyone. This is just sometimes, and I get it, like everyone could use what we're offering at our centers. That's one way to think about it. But really knowing who your audience is, like who's coming now and who you want to attract to come in future, is really key to sort of hone in on. There's all kinds of brilliant ways that someone younger than me that has like digital marketing chops can really get into like the analytics, demographic, psychographic of who your audience is. But knowing that is really important information in terms of shaping your programming and thinking about what you're curating for the audience that you have currently and that you'd like to have in future. I'll use a Hollyhock example here. I remember still the personas that we developed. We had, and this was just like our way of distilling down the description of a guest that comes frequently to Hollyhock and describing them. We give them a name because we want it to be that alive for us. So we had Glenda. She was 40 to 55, middle class, about to be an empty nester with more time on her hands. That was our one of our current personas. Then we also had Ray, who was a late 20-something social justice activist, cared deeply about equity and the environment, but wasn't sure if Hollyhock was for them. And these were both audiences that were important for us and that we were looking to attract. Or in a few noddings, I'm like, I'm sure this was like a few years ago now, but just as an example of just like knowing your audience to that level of detail, so that your everything from your programming to your storytelling and the campaigns and the communications that you're putting out can really land in terms of your messaging. But also the next point is where, what platforms are you using? My sort of leaning on this is to do less really well. I think if you're on every social media platform and they're all kind of like the followings are not building on each of them, I think it's better to actually do less. And most centers will have a website and maybe start with an email list that you're building, and you're putting out email campaigns so people know about your programs coming up. Choose one social platform. A lot of centers use Instagram because a lot of our centers, as we've been talking about, are in these like immersive, natural, beautiful places, and which lends themselves really well to visuals. So the platforms is something to think about, but then also the content, really starting to create content that adds value and really tapping some of the resources that you have, like some of your presenters and your teachers, and having them create blog posts, not promoting their retreat necessarily, but what does Matthew Brennan-Silver think about someone who doesn't have a meditation practice? What are 3 tips or ideas from Matthew on how do you start a daily meditation practice? Just an idea. Something like that is like content that people can really sink their teeth into. Something that we did a lot. Recipes was very popular at Hollyhock. I don't know if it still is, but recipes really seem to draw people in. We also did a lot of Instagram reels that are really beautiful at Kripalu. Like pop over to their Instagram feed. That's interviews that we would conduct with teachers, and we would do these lives. And so that was another way for us to engage the audience and not just be talking about the program, but providing added value content. This kind of segues to the next point, which is brand storytelling. And I'm kind of distinguishing brand storytelling from program marketing, because there's the things that you do. Brand storytelling, I sort of say, are the activities that you do to raise the profile of your center, the people of your center, your mission, and your presenters. You might have ambassadors or leadership who are on speak at this sort of thing. You might do some media relations and some PR, but it's helping people discover, helping your audience discover you in a way that's very authentic and really sort of furthering of your mission. I did see a question earlier on, I think it was from Jushin, about, what if we have teachers, like a sort of a set faculty, like how do we build their following? And to that, I would say, like, build the profile of your center, like make sure the people who are practitioners of, what you're offering have a way of finding you through your content, through your messaging, and through the platforms that you're using. Of course, then the last point is around program marketing. This is sort of the constant engine, the activities that you're doing to sell your programs. Mentioned already a couple of times today, the joint effort with presenters is a really important point. This is something that I talk to presenters about from the first conversation. With Kripalu, it was like, oh, we get plugged into the Kripalu engine and there's a whole marketing department. It's like, yes, and again, it's us introducing your audience to our property, and I think I said that wrong. Us introducing introducing your audience to us, and the other way around. This joint effort is really important in terms of driving enrollments. It can really be a difference maker. So making sure that's like part of the understanding, it can even be part of contractual agreements. That really helps to sell your programs. The last thing I'm going to say is that if your program is not doing well and not selling, it's rarely just a marketing issue. Sometimes we can fall into this trap of being like, oh, we just didn't market it enough, or we didn't do enough outreach. Yes, that can be the case sometimes. And also, there might be something about your program, your product, to examine and say, did we miss the mark on the topic, the title, the time of year? Like there's all kinds of variables to look at, but I just wanted to like raise that as a flag, that it's not always like your product has to be a good fit with your audience. And it's rarely just marketing if it's not selling well. Don't forget to sort of go back and look at the actual workshop itself, the content itself. Okay, next slide.
And as I click, I'll just say there's a really great comment from Gloria that has to do with like SEOs and Google reviews. And I feel like that kind of ties into what you're just talking about.
Yes, absolutely. We were just talking about SEOs, search engine optimization. I will go back and read these. Thank you all for your engagement in the chat. So how I approach profitability: money in, money out. I keep it very, very simple. So money in, typically for most, the centers that I've worked at, there's two parts to your earned revenue. There's a tuition price and there's a lodging and meals price. So I have an example here. You have $500, like this is maybe, let's say a 5-night program, $500 tuition, $1,000 for 5 nights of room and board. So each guest is paying $1,500. The way I think about profitability for programming is I base all my calculations just on the tuition revenue. And the reason I do that is because the lodging and meals part of the equation is typically already going to cover all your campus related labor and expenses, your front desk team, your operations, housekeeping, facilities, maintenance, safety, like the list goes on. So I try to make programs profitable just based on that first part, the program. Some places call it a program fee or a registration fee. So that's the money in part of the equation. The money out is calculating what are the direct costs to run each program. So mostly it's what I've listed here: presenter payments, travel stipends, room and board to house the presenting team. Like, don't forget that. Most people, we offer room and board, sometimes some travel for people to come and teach. There's a monetary value to that, and that should be considered as part of the comp package to your presenter. So those are the direct costs to run each program. And then finding your target profit margin per program then allows you to have, the remaining money from the tuition revenue then goes to cover your departmental costs. So your staff, your retreat managers, your program team, your program administration staff, however you're structured. So that equation, I'll run through a specific example next, but just to give you an idea, I remember when I started at Hollyhock, this magic number of 46% was just like kind of given to me and said, that's the target profit margin. And I asked up and down, like, how did you come to that number? Now I understand it's like kind of because you're working with a different labor force and that kind of ebbs and flows. I didn't ask too many questions, but I did try to make the sort of average of all the programs hit this 46% profit margin, and some are going to be less and some are going to be more. What's important is kind of the average at the end of the year. And each of your centers will have a different target margin. Next slide. I'll show you one calculation I did. This is for one of the Kripalu schools. So before I moved over to the luminary department, the revenue, as I just explained, same tuition and housing. So just based on the tuition, I looked at the direct cost to run, and this was for one of the schools. So it was the cost to run trainings. So faculty comp, housing and meals for faculty, travel, student supplies, manuals, credit card fees. All of that amounted to about 65% of tuition revenue. That was the cost to run the training. It was a bit higher because they tended to be longer trainings. And so we had higher faculty costs as a result, understandably. And then the 35% went to cover the departmental and organizational expenses. The cost to run the school, your administrative staff and equipment, and also a portion of it went to cover organizational expenses. So that can be everything from CapEx to your marketing team, to finance team, to IT. So this is an example. Is what I would do is create a spreadsheet of the revenue in from enrollments, and then I would look at the direct cost to run the training, and I would try to hit a 35% margin on each training. And then you can do this retroactively, like you can look at programs you've run in 2025 and see what your margins are, and you can do it as a projection for your year ahead as well, so that you have a very clear idea of what your target enrollments are for each of your programs. Sorry, it's getting late here. My brain is starting to spin from all the talking. So you have a sense of what projected enrollments you want to hit in order to cover not just the cost of the training, but also your programming department related costs. I hope all of that made sense. So my last point on this slide, the goal is for your program to be profitable using only tuition revenue and accounting for all your programming related expenses, typically your personnel and your presenters. So how many people, just I'm curious, you can take down the slide for a sec, Michael. How many folks charge a tuition or a program registration fee for their workshops? Yeah, Eve, Mega, great. Mega, yes. Currently, good. All right, awesome. Pam. Okay. And I know that this can also bring up a lot of questions. Fantastic. So that's that part of your revenue is what you can start basing some of these calculations on. And there's a question around Donna as well, because I know some folks pay their teachers through Donna, and there can be a temptation to just to not charge a program fee if your teachers are being paid in Donna. But just know that you're not covering your departmental related expenses if you're not charging any program fee, because the tuition, part of it goes to the teacher, but the other part goes back to your center. So just even if it's a reduced program fee, it is an important part of your earned revenue formula in order to have revenue coming in that covers your departmental costs. Eve, I saw you unmute for a second. Did you have something to add?
I can put it in the chat. I don't have to talk. You want to keep going?
Oh, that's okay. I'm pretty much, that's my last slide. I'll pop up I'll pop up a slide, but I'd love to hear your comment, and then I'll pop up a slide to let you know how to get a hold of me.
So we're about 15 years old, and when we first started, we did some asking about other retreat centers, and we had some connections with Omega and Kripalu and how they did things, and they advised us to take a percentage of tuition of the teachers that are coming.
Yes.
And but that definitely did not go well in our business. Teachers are like, no, this is my tuition. This is what I'm charging. So when they're renting our space, so basically the teachers tell us how much tuition they want to charge. And then we collect it as people are registering and pay them their tuition minus credit card fees. So tuition to us is like a zero income. I'm wondering how many other retreat centers have that scenario. Or does
so
everybody
are they kind of a rental situation? Like, do you okay, here's the thing that can distinguish. Do you do any marketing or registration for these groups?
Both, yes.
Okay, so then they have a tuition they want to charge, and then there's also a fee that you would put on top of that, because you're also providing the guest services and the marketing, and you actually taking the time to do the program planning, that needs to be covered as well. So sometimes it's a pretty significant culture change. And I know that can be like a little bit scary sometimes. And teachers, like, there's a precedent set, right? Teachers have like a way that it's always been. But I would say, like, don't be shy about explaining why and what it covers and including that as part of the price. It's a necessary, I would go on the limb to say it's a necessary part of profitability when you look at your programming.
Thank you.
A couple of interesting comments along the lines here too for folks to check out. In the chat, Jushin talks about an amortization and with bed nights. And so that's a really interesting, mathematical equation to help decide what your fee should be.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I will do some scrolling to.
It says, we have a similar Dana approach for teachers, but our lodging cost includes mortgage, insurance, manager salaries, amortized over a reasonable number of room nights in a year.
Yes. This all relates also back to, you probably do a similar calculation to come to your room rates. Like, what is the cost to house and feed someone on campus? That probably informs what you charge for your room rate. This is a similar thing. What's the cost to run the training? What's the labor cost for you to program something? And then that has to be incorporated into a fee, a tuition. Thank you, Michael, for putting my contact information here. I just want to say that I love this work. I love co-learning as well. I've been doing this for a few years, but I know I definitely do not have all the answers and solutions. I'd love for us to have a further conversation about this. Please be in touch. And this whole idea of optimizing your programming and your finances, again, I just want to say it's all about so that we can optimize our impact in the world. And I'm super grateful to be in the circle with all the amazing work that you all are doing. Yeah, it's a real honor to be in this network of peers. So thank you.
I just want to take an opportunity to say thank you to Ling for being with us today. And Ling has her own consulting company where you could work with her. And so her contact info is there, and feel free to reach out. I know that the times that I've had with Ling have been so helpful and wonderful. I just want to plug that there's an opportunity for folks to become members of, what did I say, Five Oaks? I said there are opportunities for folks to become members of the Retreat Center Collaboration. And I put a link in there. If you want to know more about what it means to be a member, feel free to reach out to me. You can book a time. I'd be happy to go over that. So I know that there's some folks here whose centers are already members and others who are not. And so just inviting either an individual or a organizational membership. We have a few more great calls coming up. We have Tea with Tatiana coming up on December the 3rd, Communication Skills for Difficult Conversations. And Tatiana, I've seen you on the call, and I know it's going to be awesome. And then there's going to be a call later in December on the 15th with Peter, who's also on the call right now, Tactical Fundraising Strategies for Success. So we look forward to seeing all of you there, and we hope you have a great day.
Thanks,
everyone. Thanks, Ling.
Good to
Thank
see
you,
you.
Ling. Good
Thank
to
you
see
so
you.
much.
You
Thank you. Always
too.
good to see you.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Ling. That
Yeah.
was really great.
Yeah, thanks. Take care. Good to see you too. Thanks for taking the time. Peter, did you make it home finally?
I did, yeah. I got home from Alabama quite late last night, but then I picked up my mom in the morning, so that's what I was doing on the ferry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Is
Yeah.
she with you? Did you bring her back to
Oh,
Bowen?
she's right there.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah.
I haven't seen her in years. My God.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, Ling, that was amazing. I mean, obviously you're